Well, there's my backpack and my camera, where I've taken refuge from a little rainstorm in this little doorway. And this little doorway belongs to an ancient Roman temple to Zeus at a place called Uzuncaburc, which is about 30 miles outside of a coastal town in the Mediterranean called Silifke. And I kind of misspoke, because this temple during the Christian period was turned into a church, and you can tell that by this curving wall right here. That doesn't belong to the original kind of Zeus temple, the ancient Roman temple. That belongs to a Christian renovation of this building and conversion into a church. And that little doorway, as I pointed out, where I was hiding from the rain for a while, that's part of the Christian addition to this structure. Ironically, you can see in the background the minaret of the local mosque. So you've got in this one shot kind of three religions all in one, each succeeding the other: the Roman pagan, the Byzantine Christian, and the Islamic in the background. Still a very lovely, lovely place, and I'm hoping for some blue sky so I can show you some better pictures. But there's a couple of other things I want to show you here as well. This might be boring to some people, but this is issues of conservation. When the original Roman temple was built, the Roman fabric of the building was built with a limestone that was quite hard. It must have been quarried from some distance from here. But when repairs were made in the Christian period, they used a more local stone, which is a much inferior stone. It's still a limestone, but it's much softer. That makes it easier to carve, but it also makes it less strong. And you can see that some of the additions have suffered from what we call compression fractures, from the weight bearing down upon them. But this softer limestone also erodes much more quickly, and you can see a lot of signs of that. And of course, as soon as cracks appear, then plants, seeds get in the cracks, and of course their roots swell, and they pull apart the stone really quite quickly. And so you can see all kinds of signs of this erosion. In this case, the lintel over this doorway, a crack has appeared, and then water comes down through that little crack and erodes all of the squared stones. Creates almost like a little river, and you can follow its path. So this is definitely a temple that needs a lot of attention in terms of conservation. And here's some more here. That looks like some kind of a dog. It has a collar on it, and more of these architectural fragments. Really quite beautiful. Now, another artifact that's quite stunning, and I'll just kind of pan over these other fragments that have been set up. There's this pretty wonderful sarcophagus right here. This ancient Roman sarcophagus. You see how it's set up against the wall. That may well be its original location or something like it. It is finished only on the front. The sides and the back, there's nothing. In other words, it wasn't meant to be kind of freestanding. And there, of course, is the place where the body or bodies were, and I'll explain that in a minute. It's very typical in Roman. There's some thunder there. I'm competing with Zeus here. Zeus is not liking me today. He's raining on me. I need Apollo. I need the sun god to come through here. But there's and by the way, you can actually see a fragment of inscription along there. Not really enough to read, but a fragment of inscription. Very typical on Roman tombs to have symbols of fertility. So you have animals that are associated with fertility. The ram on the corner. Bull's heads, right? The bull also associated with fertility. And of course there are these swags of fruit and grain and figs and grapes and all kinds of things like that. And the idea here is that this fertility kind of alluded to the afterlife, that life would come again, and that there would be rebirth in an afterlife. So here's this, very impressive Roman sarcophagus. But I'm going to show you one other thing that's quite interesting. If we walk over to these blocks, and there's the temple again in the background. This is a beautiful sight, by the way. I mean, beautiful green grass, wild flowers are out. Despite the thunder and the lightning and a bit of rain, I'm really enjoying this place. Now, you see this object here. This could very well be the lid to that ancient sarcophagus. And how you have to look at it is this way. Okay, so that's the lid. Now, it's very, very hard to see, but there are 3 people reclining. There's their legs. Those are the legs of the man, so that's the husband. Okay? Now, he's lost his head. Everybody's lost their heads here. He as he lies down, embraces his wife. There's his hand. So that's sort of his wife's shoulder, right? Okay? She's lost her head. And this is fairly typical to have a husband and wife reclining on the lid of their sarcophagus. And so they were probably buried, husband and wife together. But this one, I have to say I don't know if I've ever seen this before. There is a third figure, a smaller figure. And so husband's leg, wife's leg, but look, a third leg there as well. So the idea here is that this may also be, come on Zeus, work with me here, okay? That there may have been a child here as well. So husband, wife, and son, or perhaps daughter, all buried in the same sarcophagus and depicted on the sarcophagus lid. And the son or daughter holds in their hand a kind of wreath, and could be a wreath of victory, the victory over death, something along those lines. Anyway, a very interesting pair of artifacts that probably were once together, that are now a few meters apart, but I think we can safely put them together. Very nice. A couple of other things. This, I'm taking this picture from what was the west end of the temple, and okay, Zeus, I get your point. I get your point. Now, this was in the Greek temple. The entrance was probably on the eastern side. When it became a church, they reversed the orientation, and so this is kind of looking into the main entrance to what was the church, towards the semicircular apse over there in the distance. But one of the things I wanted to show you is that there's all this kind of wreckage in front, and what all of this is, amongst the beautiful wildflowers, are all different parts of the temple itself. And what I'm standing on right here is, and you can see the flutes right there, okay? The flutes of, and you can just barely see them. See these little crested things here? Those are the flutes of the original Roman temple. So this is a column drum from one of the original Roman temples. Now you see, I'll show you this column drum right here. A couple of things that are interesting about it. First of all, you notice in the middle of the drum there's a square hole. Okay, you can see in this much more fragmentary one, same kind of thing. The one I'm standing on, same kind of thing. There's the square hole. And either wood or metal pins were put in here so that when they stacked the column drums, this would keep them from rotating in any kind of seismic activity. Now, another thing that's interesting about this particular column drum is how well preserved the flutes are, right? Okay, which are those little kind of grooves and crests that you see, that kind of pattern. And obviously this column drum was buried. It was thrown down long ago. Earth covered it. And the good part of it, the well-preserved part of it that you see right here, is the part that was buried, because it was protected for thousands of years from the elements and from the erosion. But part of the block must have stuck above, right? Okay, because as you go around, right, you look and see, you can see exactly what part was buried and what part was exposed to the elements. Because the part that was exposed to the elements is completely eroded away. You can't see the grooves, the flutes, or the irises, which are the peaks, whereas in the buried part they were protected, which goes to show that in archaeological sites the safest place for anything to be is still underground. As soon as you expose it to the elements, then it gets eroded and starts to wear away.